This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first-step father, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Hi everyone, it's Gina Minardi, host of Spaces Between and therapist for over the last decade. This show is dedicated to exploring our inner landscapes, states of consciousness, and healing intergenerational trauma. I have an ever-expanding curiosity about how we can find a deeper connection with ourselves, the universe, and each other. Spaces Between explores the sacred that lives within you and is not separate from you, acknowledging the awareness, power, and knowing that we all contain. Conversations aim to illuminate and inspire in our everyday life. You might laugh, cry, and smile at the absurdity, pain, and beauty of being alive. Thank you so much for being here. All right. I'm going to have you first, Fenix, lead us in dropping into a breath and a prayer, and then we'll rock.
Okay. Shall we start?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So just an invitation to close our eyes. Feel our bodies sink into whatever space that we are sitting in. And let yourself land, feeling your seat in the chair. Deep breath in, deep breath out, letting your whole being slow down. Feeling your hands resting wherever they may be. Feeling your feet on the floor or wherever they are, just sinking into their spot. Feeling your eyelids gently resting over your eyeballs closed. And imagine taking a deep breath from all the way beneath the core of the earth, all the way down from the ocean, and breathing up through the ocean, up through the earth, into your feet. And just breathing that all the way up through your bones and muscles and tendons as it travels up through your body, swirling through your organs, all the way up to the tippy top of your lungs, through the crown of your head and washing over you on the outside of your body like a fountain as you let go of anything that is holding or contracting or no longer serves you. Big inhale in. And a big exhale out through your feet, down into the earth, down into the ocean. And with every breath in, you're calling in what you'd like to bring in: love, peace, joy, ease, abundance. And on your exhale, letting go of anything that is no longer necessary or useful. And one more deep inhale all the way up, up, up. Swirling through your heart and your lungs, clearing through your throat chakra, through your third eye. And this time when it goes out through the crown of your head, continue going up in your mind's eye with a swirling motion, gathering all the light of the sun and the moon and the stars, tapping into the angelic realm, scooping all that light. And on your exhale, just bringing that down through your crown like a column of light, infusing you with light through every cell, muscle, bone, chakra, organ, merging with the energy of the earth and the ocean, clearing you, infusing you, nurturing you, and filling you up with love and joy and peace. Out through your feet back into the earth. Thank you for that.
Wow. Well, hello, my dearest Phoenix. I'm just going to let everyone on Spaces Between know that I am sitting down with truly one of the most treasured souls in my life. Phoenix has not only guided me in some of the deepest journeys in my life, just being around her and her heart and her wisdom. Yeah, I know that she has a lot to share. And so I'm so excited, Phoenix, to have you on today. Thank you for being here. And I picked a quote. I know you and I want to let everybody know as I'm just talking and riffing that you and I were talking before this and starting to dive into our healing journeys. And you have been very committed to your life is committed to, I would say, healing and wisdom and facilitating others. I just wanted to read this and then I want to hear from you how this lands with you. Okay, is that okay?
Sounds great.
Okay. It's by Pema Chodron, who is truly one of my favorite Buddhist teachers. And I really thought that this was, well, great for both of us, actually. But so the title of it is Perfection is Like Death. We think that if we just meditated enough or jogged or ate perfect food, everything would be perfect. But from the point of view of someone who is awake, that's death. Seeking security or perfection, rejoicing in feeling confirmed and whole, self-contained and comfortable is some kind of death. It doesn't have any fresh air. There's no room for something to come in and interrupt all that. We are killing the moment by controlling our experience. Doing this is setting ourselves up for failure because sooner or later, we're going to have an experience we can't control. Our house is going to burn down. Someone we love is going to die. We're going to find out we have cancer. Or somebody's going to spill tomato juice all over our beloved white suit. The essence of life is that it's challenging. Sometimes it's sweet and sometimes it's bitter. Sometimes your body tenses and sometimes it relaxes or opens. Sometimes you have a headache and sometimes you feel 100% healthy. From an awakened perspective, trying to tie up all the loose ends and finally get it together is death because it involves rejecting a lot of your basic experience. There is something aggressive about that approach to life, trying to flatten out all the rough spots and imperfections into a nice, smooth ride. To be fully alive, fully human, and completely awake is to be continually thrown out of the nest. To live fully is to be always in no man's land, to experience each moment as completely new and fresh.
Wow. That could not be more perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that really lands. And first of all, just thank you for the invitation to be here. You are actually my first virgin ride on a podcast. So I'm really excited to be here, especially with you, because I have just a kindred connection with you. And thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, that really lands with me. That was my MO as a child, was to be perfect. And I was very much applauded for being what was conceived and perceived as perfect. In the way I looked, in the way I performed. I was a cheerleader, a solo flautist, and all just so many things along my childhood that I had to be perfect. And it was, upon reflection and a lot of inner work, my survival strategy. And I got A++ in People Pleaser 101. I was very well trained by my mom in that way, and as the oldest of 4 daughters, I assumed the role as being the perfect older sister to keep not only myself safe, but the whole family. Um, I also got honors in eggshell walking, and, it would be some years, many years later that I had to learn that that was no way to live. It was a way to survive for a long time, but it was not ultimately the way to live a peaceful, free life. And so that was actually a big impetus for all the seeking and shedding and unraveling and healing that would be my path inevitably.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I remember actually in not that I don't want to digress into a personal journey that I had with you, but I do remember that portion of you and I talking about us being sort of kindred spirits in that really learning how to be perfectionists and the pain, the deep, deep, deep pain that comes with perfectionism, and walking on eggshells for others in life, which I actually, your most recent Instagram post talked about your relationship to perfectionism and ultimately you having this recent moment where you kind of felt yourself go rah, like, and I won't go into the details of that experience, but can we talk about, because I think obviously your journey with breast cancer and being adopted, um, yeah, how just your healing journey in relation to those big, big spaces in life, both, yeah, just gonna open that up for you.
So I guess for all of us, it all starts when we're born. So actually, mine even started before I was born. My birth mother was a teenager, Irish Catholic. Her father was the police chief in a very small town in the Midwest, and she got pregnant by a married man. So already she was a sinner and she was carrying a lot of shame and a lot of fear during her pregnancy, which was my, inner landscape was living inside this fear body and shamed body. And she actually attempted suicide when she was pregnant with me because she did not know how she was going to tell her police chief Catholic father that she was pregnant via a married man. And so when they took her to the hospital because of the suicide attempt, and he arrived and they said, Chief, your daughter's going to be okay. And by the way, did you know that your daughter's pregnant? Which resulted in her being sent away to a home for, sinner girls. And after I was born, I was put in with a foster family for many years, up until my 40s. I thought I went straight, 2 days old, straight to my adoptive family. But I found out in my 40s that no, I was actually put with a foster family for the first 4 months of my life. And inevitably was adopted by a beautiful, beautiful mom and dad who I adore and had a very privileged life. And there was some alcoholism in the family, hence the eggshell walking. But for the most part, we lived a very blessed life. And over the course of my years, I was always asking, but who do I look like? Whose nose do I have? Whose smile do I have? Tell me more about my story. What was my real name? And my mom would always say, we've always known you as Phoenix. And this is all we know. But I always had a yearning for the mother, the one who gave birth to me. Over the course of my years and my seeking, I found my first spiritual teacher when I moved to LA. I was in my early 20s, and I found someone who taught me about psychedelics. We started working with mushrooms, and I really was like, "Whoa, I'm uncovering some deep emotions here." And so I got introduced in my 20s to that way of praying, shall I say? And then some years went by, and maybe 16 years ago, I was introduced to ayahuasca. And in that ceremony, I got the big bang and started uncovering deep, deep shame. And I was like, shame? I don't have any shame. And started realizing that it was not my shame, it was my birth mother's shame and my ancestor's shame and my grandmother's shame. And then, like, Pandora's box opened, and I started really realizing so much about all these feelings I was having. Even though I had a beautiful upbringing, I always felt disconnected and not a part of and not good enough. Even though I was performing well and getting a lot of approval, there was just these inner places that felt disconnected. And then right before COVID hit, I got diagnosed with breast cancer, which, is the left side is where your heart is. So I just had kind of this empty space in my heart, which, if you follow Louise Hay, who believes that everything that manifests on a physical level is actually based on emotions that are out of balance, or there's some trauma there. So that connection was not lost on me, that I was holding grief in my heart. Everything was put on hold. Well, first, let me just say that when I got that first diagnosis, I had already been working with the plants. I've been a body worker for many years. I was a painter and a potter, so I was already tuning into my intuition and, playing with my imagination. And I always had connection to, like, spirits and imaginary friends and Mother Nature big time. So when I got the diagnosis in late 2019, I had some tools in my back pocket that I was already connected to spirit in many ways. And I felt like, okay, this isn't going to take me out. I am not going to be a victim to this. If this was my last day on earth, if I got a diagnosis like cancer or anything traumatic, I am not going to contract in fear. That is not going to be fun. So I chose in that moment, I'm going to be in awe. I'm going to be in wonder, like, wow, how can I work with this? This is going to be an intense experience, but what is there to learn? So I made that choice to be open. And very shortly in that journey, which became a 4-year journey, I realized that it was not happening to me. It was happening for me, because I began to learn some really big truths and a lot of unwinding of more trauma. And because COVID hit right after that diagnosis, my chemo and my surgery were put on hold. At the time, I was living on a beautiful 45-acre ranch in a beautiful town, surrounded by groves of trees and, hawks and deer and hummingbirds, living this fairy tale lady in the wilderness life. And so I went into quarantine there, and I did my artwork, and I painted, and I did pottery, and I worked with the plants, and I got to be in a very peaceful state, and I was really clean in my diet. So I started tapping into my light body a lot, because I was also just really trying to tune in what was needed, and also on the mission to heal myself. I didn't want to do Western medicine. I really did not want to do it. And so I thought, if I can put all my energy into the power of alternative medicine and holistic modalities, that's the path I'm going to go down. And along the way, or even before that, I continued in the ceremonial work, and eventually kept getting more and more information. And right after I got the diagnosis with the cancer, miracle of all miracles, I found my birth family after searching for decades. So all the dots started to get more and more connected. And I thought for 3 years. I kept putting off the doctors. I kept going to cleanses in Hawaii, and my scans kept coming back clear. And so for 3 years, I was known as the woman who healed herself from breast cancer until I was in another ceremony and I felt another lump. And I knew immediately what that was. And at that point, it had been declared aggressive and invasive. And now there was no messing around, and I had to surrender to Western medicine. But I had had 3 years of fine tuning and a lot of lessons. And so at that point, I was ready to work with that. I reframed it as from poison to love medicine. And as I knew it was something from Mother Nature, and reframed it, instead of something that was going to poison my body, that it was instead going to bring the parts that were out of balance back into balance. So 3 years ago, I went into chemo. 2 years ago, I had a double mastectomy. And here I am today to talk about it. It has been and still is the greatest teacher of my life up to this point.
I have so much to say to all that you just shared. One in which is your this is so layered how I want to your number one, your resiliency, your choice of curiosity and awe, and not choosing victimhood. Which I say this so carefully to people listening because I know this can be very charged for humans. The idea that disease can come up in the body from emotions and from traumas. I think a lot of people internalize that as somehow they did something bad to themselves, to get cancer but just from listening to you all the way back, Phoenix, to when you were talking about the deep imprint of guilt and shame that was carried in the womb space with your mother. And then you were sent off. And for me as a mother, thinking about you, I mean, my whole body, because I also just have such this deep love for you. When I was thinking about you in the first 4 months of your life in a foster care system where a baby, makes me so emotional, is really just you feel still one with your mother for the first 7 months of your life. So that deep, deep, deep imprinting. And I guess I just want to speak to that because I think that's something is often missed in healing and what we carry from the womb and even past lives. And I don't want to, I'm going all over the place, but I really just want to speak to how you've led from the space of curiosity and love and awe in what was such a scary diagnosis, I think, for so many people. And for so many humans, we get into the fear and the contraction and also giving away our power. So giving away power to doctors and, maybe chemotherapy and radiation are my only options. And again, please, anyone listening, this is not me shaming that. That's what my mother chose, right? But something I knew as a very young child, witnessing even her, was I was like, wow, there's so much more to this, So in your ceremony journeys, and I know that if you're comfortable with me saying this, you have sat with ayahuasca over 100 times. What do you think were some of the deepest themes that you learned about yourself and life? This is a big question. What you learned about yourself and life to bring yourself back to a space of health and vitality, and to now be sitting here across from me, cancer free.
Great question. And yes, it's a big one. So let me just sit with that for 1 second. First, I just want to say that I did, for a long time in my life, live my life as a victim. As an artist, I was a starving artist. I watched all my friends go on their trajectory from, college into marriage into motherhood into home ownership and multiple home ownership and big careers and all that. And here I was still staying in that starving artist living in an apartment thing. I was like, why me? Why me? What am I doing wrong? And just figuring out all these little ways to survive, a little patch of income here and there, and doing all the things I could to just survive and feeling like a victim, like why isn't it working out for me? And somewhere along the way, I had to take another look and say, I am banging the drum of that story. And as long as I keep banging the drum, it's going to keep repeating itself because it's all vibration, it's all frequency. So if I have thoughts and or dialogue, if that is my story, that the universe wants us to be right. So whatever you're speaking or thinking is reverberating, and the universe source is just going to reflect that back to you. So I thought if I finally got it, if I want to have a different reality, I have to tell a different story. So I started focusing on how do I want it to feel? Like I don't, and this also came through with the medicine work. I have to, as an artist, I'm always imagining through the eyes. I'm a visual person. But if I can only visualize to a certain degree, I might be missing out on some things that I could never even imagine. And so I, at some point, made a shift like, I don't have to figure it out through my head, which are where my eyes live in my head. But if I can take it down to my heart, where I can feel, then I'm going to just give how it's going to look and all that other stuff to source and say, I want it to feel peaceful and joyful and abundant, just like in that opening meditation, and easy and fun and juicy. If I can focus on the feeling, then source, I'm going to let you fill in the details. And I'm just going to sit back and allow and just be in awe, just be in nature where it's such a great teacher, right? It teaches us to slow down, find your center, find your breath, just be in the present moment. That's also what I taught, just slow down. You don't have to work so hard and you don't have to try and figure it out from your head because that's where the ego lives and it's not always fun up there. Um,
So,
so I don't know if that answered your question.
yeah, it absolutely answered my question. So, and you being able to own that you went from a space of victimhood to the awe and the curiosity. And would you say, so with your diagnosis, so the victimhood, did you feel that way? Was that your like early adult part of your life or
Was the victim piece?
yeah, like when in the kind of like the starving artist period of just like I
Yeah, that the starving artist victim part. Well, the starving artist was for a long time, even in my 50s. It was still just part of my identity as an artist that, in parentheses, word starving was kind of attached. Um, but when I started getting into the healing work and doing body work and really connecting and working with energy, for me, the injuries I sustained as a dancer were what led me to become a body worker. And also being a potter fused into or merged into the body work because working with clay is also like working with the body, where you put pressure to make a dent here and there. So those two things were very symbiotic and they informed each other. When I started working with the body work and the artwork together, there was deep connection with energy there. And so in those spaces, when I was connecting with another person, I had to be in stillness. I had to be in my center and I had to be in communication with source because that energy is what I was going to be transmitting to the body that I was touching.
Mm.
So to be in service to that person, I had to be in my peace and in my center and in my present, and then in my presence, how I was showing up. And that started to transmute the victimhood because I was in service to someone else. And it wasn't about that story anymore. It was, I was in joy, I was in peace, I was in service. And that felt so, so, so good.
Mhm.
And I was also channeling, also what I learned in the ceremonies was that I am not alone. I am not disconnected. I am a part of Mother Nature, the greatest mother of all. And if can channel the stars and the moon and the sun and the leaves and the rain and the wind into my body, into my cells, which is what I did while I was going through chemo. I was working with Mother Nature that way, inviting it into every cell of my body, which is what I was, letting out of my fingers when I put my hands on somebody also.
Mhm.
Just being the channel. It
Mhm.
wasn't like I was doing anything to anyone. I was just in the state of allowing.
Mhm.
But also that reminds me that the other thing I learned to get from victimhood was to have understanding with, usually in victimhood, it's like, this is happening to me, or that person did that to me. But if once I could start understanding where that person was coming from, for example, oh, well, they acted that way because they had a really traumatic childhood or episode. And then once I could understand, then I could have compassion. And once you have compassion, you can have forgiveness. And the forgiveness is the liberation. So to me, those are the key ingredients from going from victimhood to freedom is understanding, compassion, and forgiveness.
Mm.
That's
Mm.
the recipe
Yeah.
as far as I,
Yeah. Well, and I think some of the greatest lessons, I think, that we're kind of what I believe that we're supposed to really get being human, is compassion for others, compassion for ourselves, forgiveness of others, forgiveness of ourselves, and truly learning to love ourselves, is all is this is the path. This is why we're here, and sorry, what would you?
I said, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because and I've never asked somebody this on the podcast, but I feel like you're the person to ask because you have sat in ceremony and you facilitate humans in ceremony. I've had people in my journey go, how do you know, Gina, when you're sitting with ayahuasca or psilocybin, that it's spirit, right? That you're communing with spirit and there's not so many of these people in my life. Most people are very open to this type of work, but how do we know it's real? I know this is going to feel like a little bit of a digression, but I think it's a big one. People have big questions who are curious about this work. And yeah, because these experiences, they're visually big. You get a lot of information coming through as you're talking about. I feel like there's channeling within the space of ceremony and then even out when you're integrating. So, yeah. How did you know when you started sitting in ceremony? Okay, this is spirit, and I'm communing with spirit and the universe because I think it's so big for people. I don't know if that's too big of a.
No, it's a big question, but for
Yeah.
me, it's just a really simple answer.
Mm.
It's you just feel it. It's a feeling, like it just feels right. It just resonates like, oh my gosh, that's it. You get that feeling like that's it. That's the dress. Those are the shoes. That's the car. That's the partner. That's the house. That's the feeling. Like, oh my gosh, like all of a sudden the dominoes start tumbling like bravo, yay, the angels start clapping, like, "You're it, that's it." It just resonates.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and again, it's in the heart. It's not like twisting it in the brain, trying to, "Is that real? I need to analyze that."
Hmm.
How does it feel? How
Hmm.
does it feel?
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
a really short answer to a very big question, but, I don't know, it to me, it transcends that feeling of yes, just transcends all kinds of things.
Hmm. Hmm.
Walking down the street in your daily life or being in a deep, meditation, when you get an inkling on something or an intuitive hit on something, that's spirit.
This is why I asked you. Because I feel like you gave the most beautiful, beautiful and succinct, because I think it's hard for some people to, who maybe haven't had these experiences, or, when we speak to source or spirit. And again, and it doesn't have to be with sitting in ceremony or with plant medicine, as you were saying, meditation, going for a walk, staring at the leaves blowing in the wind. There are so many ways to commune with the divine. But I think it is, as you said, it's that resonance and that feeling that, and the love, just, it's really, this is such a funny aside, but I didn't know that I was going to share this. Oh wait, no, my phone is off right now. But I looked up, and I never use AI. I don't use Chat GPT, but I was curious, what does Chat GPT say about sitting with the medicine? And it essentially summarized just love. You are love. You are, you experience the oneness and the unity consciousness. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I think I think it just allows the remembrance of who we are, which is love and light, you know? It's like this just feels like home. This feels like why I'm here. That what if it feels true, I think that's spirit also.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a feeling. It's not a decision from the brain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm not good at math or anything brainy like that. So it the way I choose to see it is like the brain's great for some things like math, etc., but the rest I'd rather just spend the most of it in my heart and let that be my guide.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think in these particular days, in the times that we're in, all of us learning how to operate and move from the heart, because it's really, I mean, I speak to this a lot in the most current episodes. It's really challenging times of when we're seeing so much suffering, and also so much contraction and fear from these leaders that are just engaging in heinous acts against humanity. How for all of us to really stay in the heart and stay connected to source. Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, I often, like if I'm guiding someone for a meditation or before we even begin body work, I'll just invite the person to put a hand on their chest over their heart and a hand on their belly, which is your second brain. So that's the brain I choose to work with most is my gut. And just like that is your home. That is your center. Your ears and your eyes is also in your head. I mean, your mouth is good. It's useful for expression, of course, but the internal compass of the gut and your heart is, for me, the most important thing. And I keep learning that every day. Like before we started, I was sharing a story of, being in a very deep weekend of meditation myself and was reflecting on the fact that for the past decade, I've been living in a beautiful, beautiful, visually stunning, exquisite place, which served me very well. And I'm eternally grateful. And it was amazing for my breast cancer journey to be living in that environment. But I was able to reflect over the weekend that pay attention, don't just be fooled by what you see on the outside or what you hear with your ears or see with your eyes, because you can be fooled by what you see and hear on the outside. Let that guide you, but most importantly, go to the feeling, because you can be tricked by the flashy things on the appearance version of things. So for me, that rang very clearly true to also pay attention to how does it feel? How does it feel when you're living in that beautiful space? Are you being treated well? Are there things that don't feel in alignment that you're like walking on eggshells, or, because those lessons will keep coming in as long as we're alive to keep honing our awareness.
It's, whew, I mean, you spoke to, yeah, the lessons, they just do keep coming
Right.
until
Yep.
they really do keep coming until you just, I would love you to actually go further with this. How have you been able to, when you feel like, um, and let's speak to, so what would you say the lesson was in this, in you, or you were speaking to like the shiny kind of like the beauty of it, but it wasn't, it was out of alignment. So
Mhm.
for you, that was a big lesson of how do you maybe stay in alignment with.
Yeah. Well, the lesson that I recently was able to reflect on was as beautiful, for example, as the space I had been so blessed to live in and the land I was on, which taught me so, so much. I wouldn't trade it. But I was able to see how there was a part of that where I was still in survival mode. And if I spoke my truth, it might make some uh, risky waves.
Mm.
If I spoke my truth, I might be uh, evicted, for example. And so there was still a part of me that was operating in people pleaser. Like, I won't say exactly what I want because there might be a repercussion. I'm just going to zip my lip and walk on eggshells and keep the roof over my head. And I was able to say, wow, man, that people pleaser is still alive and well, even after all these decades. And so now, because I learned that lesson, because that actually was a way that I was living, even though there were moments where, as beautiful it wasn't always easy or pleasant. Now I know for the next time, like, okay, and how does that feel? How is the energy between that other person,
Mhm.
that homeowner or that realtor or
Mhm.
whatever the case may be? The people that you have to be in relationship with, is it a healthy relationship? Is it a respectful relationship? Or is it a toxic relationship? That could be with relationship with alcohol, your boss, your partner, your friends, how does that feel in your nervous system? Does it put you into survival mode, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, people pleasing? So now I have the experience to check myself as I continue on the path.
Mhm.
And the other piece for me is, before you leap to say yes with wagging your tail, stop, take a breath, and tune into your belly and your heart and say, wait, let me slow down before I respond too quickly. Before I react, let me slow down so I can respond from my heart and not react from my brain.
Mm.
Because what I have found in my experience, if you're reacting, you're usually from your brain, and that's where the fear is. But if you can slow down and respond from your heart, from a stiller place, take a breath and be still, you're going to probably have a better outcome
Yeah.
that will serve you in the long run.
Mhm.
So for me, that's a practice. Like, don't do what you always do. Don't wag your tail too fast and react. Slow down, take a moment, even
Mhm.
if you have to say, you know what, I need to take a day and get back. I'll get back to you on that, instead of like, oh, sure. And you might have to backtrack, right? So for me, it's to slow down and breathe into my heart and see how it feels.
Mhm.
Ask how it feels.
Mhm. Mhm. I mean, you're speaking to, I think, such deep wisdom in living just in life of, yes, slowing down and listening, that deep listening, but that's something that has to be cultivated, that's really something that, and because otherwise, as you were speaking to, a lot of us, we make decisions, we jump into relationship with other people or careers or what have you from a place often of trauma, unconscious spaces. And that, as you were saying, the brain, the sort of reactive versus dropping into the heart, dropping into a nervous system that has slowed down and you're in the breath and it comes from some discernment. Discernment, and I would also just say the deeper knowing in the self, which we all carry. And you know that, I think, more than a lot. Well, I don't want that to sound shaming to people, but yeah, you've worked really hard on yourself. And I say that with the most respect, Phoenix, most.
Thank you. Well, it's also, it's all about survival, like every living creature. We're an animal too. It's all about survival. So the nervous system is running the show, and everything that we were born into as babies and through our childhood was all about how do I survive? Was a survival strategy that we developed,
Mhm.
whether it was people pleasing or acting out or shrinking or any of those things were from the nervous system and the survival strategy. So, and what you just said, and let me just track that for a second, was an answer to the question you just had, like, how do you know if that's real? Because the nervous system will also tell you, I feel safe. It's always checking, am I safe? Am I not safe? Can I survive?
Mhm.
You have to feel safe to survive.
Mhm.
You have to, if you're not safe, there's a risk that you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
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 And that's real.
Yeah.
That's how you know. Same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is,
Feeling.
yeah. Yeah. This is a really, you know what? I'm going to pause this. I'm going to pause this for a separate convo with you. But a girlfriend and I were recently talking about, we both sort of have, we were making a decision about going on a big surf trip, a boat. Actually, now I'm just saying it out loud because we were kind of wondering, and I hope this will help people listening. We were talking about modern day indecision and sort of, and also making decisions that really come from the space of knowing and depth. But we felt like we were making this, it was a surf boat trip. It was coming from this kind of impulsive and something about it for both of us. And then we found out actually that she has lumps in her breasts. And I just find that it was interesting that the two of us were really sort of spinning on making the decision. And then once we found out more about her health journey, so there was this kind of deeper knowing, but this impulsive side of us was like, no, we're going to go on this boat trip. But we didn't, we had to like really slow down. And then once we did slow down, we then learned this truth of her needing to potentially, you know, go further with treatments and different things. Yeah. So that was just an interesting moment for the both of us that there was, yeah, you almost feel like a spun out Tasmanian devil when really there's this, yeah, I'm repeating myself, but when you know that it's not the right thing.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think when you're caught up in something, it can be tricky to have the awareness in that moment of momentum to slow the F down, right? But if you can just go, wait, okay, hang on, there's a lot moving right now. Let's just stop, literally stop in our tracks sometimes. Or as I tell myself, like you're spinning out, drop and roll, which means get your ass down to the ground, lay down, just stop and feel the support underneath your body. Take a deep breath, because if you can slow down when things are starting to spin out, you're going to find the answers. The answers are not happening in the big, huge tidal wave. They're happening in the stillness. There's a lot going on in the stillness, a lot of wisdom, a lot of teaching, which is for me why I am so, in deep reverence to Mother Nature, is because you think there's nothing going on out there and it's so quiet, but all of a sudden you'll tune into that bird or the wind that's sweeping your soul, or the stream, or whatever it is. There's a lot to be gleaned in the silence, which isn't really silent, and in the stillness, where there's really a lot of answers right there moving for you. But I think that's, for me, that's a big golden ticket, is slow down and let yourself feel and listen.
I think you've been one of my greatest teachers in that. And I think even, yeah, in choosing to sit with ayahuasca the first time, and you really, yeah, were so wonderful in helping me get still and really, and then obviously that very cosmic moment when we discovered that my mom's birthday was the weekend of the ceremony. But again, I digress into
And that we have the same birthday, your mom and I.
yes, 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 yes. And anyone that's listening right now, that also Phoenix is probably a mother in my past life. No doubt.
I'm honored, but I feel you as a spirit daughter for
Yes.
sure.
Yes, big time. I would be remiss to not speak to you about facilitation and holding space for others. And I want to be mindful of your time, but I don't want to just glean over this. But something, because you learn so much from being with humans in the most vulnerable. I've said this to others, I've said this to you, and even though I'm a psychotherapist, I couldn't do the work that you do. The emotions that you hold and the trauma that comes out through the body and the purging and the all of it, it is big energy, Phoenix, big that you hold. You are such a gift. And what have you, from sitting with humans over the years and holding space for people's deep healing journeys? Again, I think this could be a 3-hour conversation. You will come back on the podcast. Um, what have you learned? Maybe some of the deepest themes, because I think there's themes for humans, right? Whether it's learning self-love, learning to forgive, walking through the fires of our trauma. What have you really witnessed in holding that space for others? I know this again an enormous. You will be back on the podcast, but
I would love to.
yeah.
I first got a glimpse into that vulnerability and having the courage to be vulnerable and let go and surrender by my own repeated work in ceremony, because it was rapidly peeling off layers for me. So I just kept diving in. It was such a profound teacher for me and healer for me, all the different modalities of and all the different plants. But when I started doing body work for people, I was seeing that without the ceremony. I was seeing people, come in. They come in, quote, for a massage, but at the check-in, it's like, let's have a seat, let's have a breath, cup of tea, what's going on? And they might just start crying all, I don't know, I just feel safe here and I'm suddenly very emotional and it's not my scapula that's hurting, it's my heart. I'm like, so I would already be tapping into people letting go and being vulnerable and the tears. And in that space as a body worker, when they're releasing those emotions, I'm just holding space for that. I might be holding their arm or their leg or have my hand on their back, but I'm allowing. It's holding the space of allowing. I am not there to fix anyone. I am not there to heal anyone. I am there to be a safe place for them to tune into their own inner healer, whether it's body work or guiding in a medicine journey. And so what I learn, and I'm so deeply honored and feel so blessed to be doing this work because it's been such a healing for me in so many ways over so many years and on so many layers and continues to be so, whether I'm participating or guiding myself, is that we all just want to be loved and we all want to feel a part of and connected and worthy. And that if we can just feel safe, that's a big chunk of the healing,
Mhm.
and that we didn't do anything wrong, and that it's our birthright to be in joy. And we don't always come in an environment, we don't always come into the most ideal environment, but it's all there for a teaching. If you know, there's a lesson in everything. But what I learned in the space of the healing realm, I say with quotes, is to really just allow and let people find their way. I'm not inserting my energy or my will. It's not my space to do that. It's my place to just be a place for them to feel free to
Mm.
uh, express,
Mm.
because repression
Mhm.
of your emotions or your voice or anything is what causes depression,
Mhm.
and the solution to that is expression. So whether it's making art or crying or jumping up and down and wiggling your body, or, beating a drum or screaming into a pillow, just let it out so that you don't have to hold it anymore. I can hold the space for you to let it out.
Yeah. Oof.
And it's such an honor, because it's the most beautiful thing. It's like watching a baby being born,
Mm.
just it's so, so, so sacred.
Mm. Mm.
So grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. As I sit here crying. Oh yeah. It's truly yeah, it's a miracle to witness you in action and to receive. I've received on such a deep, deep level with you. But everything that you just said, again, for me in the realm of psychology, but still in America where there's so much repression around true expression, like really like big ugly tears and just screaming and just letting it out. And I think that's always kind of my criticism. As much as I deeply believe in talk therapy, it's a beautiful container, but and because it does allow. But yeah, you witnessing you just allow from the body and what's coming out, somebody verbally. And I think if we could all learn to create more of an allowance for each other, right? And we're all sort of walking projective, traumatized beings. There's not a human on the planet that doesn't have wounding. And so, but you're truly an angel incarnate to give people that space to be reborn.
It's like a rebirth. It
It
really.
really, yeah, yeah,
And I think we have many opportunities in our lifetime to be reborn over and over again. It's never too late. And it's, every step, every breath is a new life.
yeah,
Every morning you wake up, you have a new life.
yeah,
We're constantly spurting new hair. They're falling out, they're growing in. Like, life is constantly recycling and coming forth in new ways.
yeah, yeah.
So there's always hope. There's always hope.
Phoenix, you are just, I feel that was the perfect space to bring this to it's actually not an end because you will be back on. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for your being and just who you are. You've really taught me how to be more of service to others and to walk more and speak more from the heart. So just thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If there's anything else you want to share in our, and there's no pressure on that. I do ask, I'm just being mindful. I feel like the Zoom is going to, but I do ask three, what I say are rapid fire questions. They're sort of big questions. I always like laugh when I'm like, Gina, these are not really rapid fire. But if you wanted to answer these, if you have the time,
Sure.
so the first one being, what is something someone, or I'm even going to stretch this question for you, or spirit has said to you that has really just impacted how you live?
Be love.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm. Okay. And did that come in through spirit or through a person?
Actually both. There was a dear, dear friend of mine, probably 20 some years ago when I was living in LA, who was an artist, an old African American man. I was probably in my 40s and he was maybe 70s, and he was a character. He was such a character. And that was a very famous saying. I would take him along. He wasn't driving anymore. So he'd say, come pick me up. Let's go on an adventure and see some things. And he just had the eye. He taught me how to see through the eyes of an artist. Everything he saw, he was pointing things out all the time. And we would go on these little adventures, lunch, coffee, and everywhere we went, people would just look at him. He could part the sea of a space when he walked in the room because of his energy. And people were like, who is that? And I was like, that's my friend. And that was his parting and entering words anywhere we went. He would just walk up to people and he would say, be love, be love. And so I adopted that from him, as a verb, as an adjective, as a way.
As a way. Oof, that's so beautiful. So true. Next question. What are you still working on right now in yourself? And yeah, yeah.
That's an easy question. It goes back to what I was saying before, which is focus on the feeling, because I just departed this beautiful, majestic 45-acre ranch that I've been living on for the past decade. So now I am working on manifesting my next forever home, or whatever span of time it is, but just calling it a very sacred space surrounded by nature where people can come and create and surrender and heal and be in communion with Mother Nature.
Mm, mm. Whew.
If you know of anybody who has a place out there, anybody listening who has a sanctuary that you would like filled with a person who would give it so much love and honor.
Contact me. Minardi. Absolutely. Last question. What do you think happens when we die?
I don't think we die.
Mm.
I think we go through the next curtain.
Mhm.
And I think we just keep expanding into more awe, more mystery,
Mhm.
more communion with mystical. I don't think we die. I think we keep evolving and, like caterpillar to the butterfly. What's after the butterfly? I don't know, but I'm sure it's extraordinary.
I'm so glad that you answered those questions.
Me too. Thanks for asking them.
Yes,
And
yes.
thank you for having me. What an honor and so much fun. And I love you so dearly. And yeah, I'm going to see you very soon. So
Yeah. I will see you very soon. And thank you for being here. And yeah, just have the most beautiful rest of your day, Phoenix.
right back at you, Gina.
All right.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Hi, friends. If you have been enjoying Spaces Between, please take a moment to subscribe, and leaving a review is the cherry on top. Thank you so much, and I look forward to connecting with you next week.